Hey there, this is AP Macro. I'm Mr. Sanabria, and today's topic is shifting supply and demand and price controls. So let's just jump right to it. Last time we talked about supply and demand, and that was a lengthy discussion about the relationship between price and quantity, and specifically the relationship that suppliers have with price and quantity, and the relationship that demanders have with price and quantity. And what we ultimately ended up with was a supply and demand graph, a graph that looks like this. You've got price and quantity on the X and Y axis, and you've got supply, which is upward sloping, and demand, which is downward sloping. And I did not include a little trick for memorizing which curve is labeled supply and which one is labeled demand. So real quick, I do want to give you that in case you are someone who likes those little kind of memorization devices. And so I've written out supply and demand here. And what you see is that in the supply curve, it has the word up, right? So supply, up. And demand starts with a D, and D is for down or descending. Okay, so supply goes up, demand goes down. Hopefully, if you were at all struggling with memorizing that, that's a good enough little trick where you will not forget it. Now, with that being said, you do need to know the reasons they slope upward and downward, which is what we discussed last time. So I'm not going to go into that again. Today, what I want to do is I want to talk specifically about shifting these curves back and forth, okay? Because the whole point of this is to identify equilibrium and to recognize that equilibrium gives us the price of an item as well as the quantity of that item that will be sold. So let's go back to our graph here. Right now, I've got an equilibrium price that is shown right here. And let's just go ahead and put a numerical value there. So let's say that that's $5. Okay, so $5 is the equilibrium price. This is also telling us the equilibrium quantity, which is the quantity of items sold. So let's pretend like this is the supply and demand of tacos, and the equilibrium price is $5, which is a pretty expensive taco. I'm not sure I support that, but I've just put a 10 there. So at $5, there will be 10 tacos sold, right? And also the beyond that is that all of them are sold, right? The behavior of suppliers and the behavior of demanders matches. Okay, there's an equal number of people willing to pay $5 for a taco as there are suppliers willing to supply tacos at $5. Hey, just wanted to cut in here and further explain something that I noticed as I was editing this video I didn't exactly get to, and I really need to. So the point of what we're doing is after finding our equilibrium, we've determined what the equilibrium price, let me just go ahead and do this a little neater, and equilibrium quantity is, right? We have the EP and the EQ. Well, the whole point of what we're doing is understanding that something might change demand and something might change supply. So let's say that demand changes. Let's say that a celebrity comes out and endorses eating a taco a day because that keeps the doctor away. We all know that, right? But a celebrity comes out and endorses that kind of taco eating. What that's going to do is that's going to change our behaviors, and you're going to end up with a new demand curve. Demand is going to shift to the right. Remember, that's an increase in demand. And so if demand shifts to the right, what we find is that we have a new equilibrium right here. And what that means is that we have a higher equilibrium price and a higher equilibrium quantity. That is what we're doing here. Okay, so if demand increases, it shifts to the right, equilibrium changed, and now we have a higher price. That's how a price goes up. Okay, I'm going to go through just a couple more of these, and then we're going to get back to the video I actually recorded yesterday. Okay, we're back. So let's say that instead of demand going up and that causing the price of tacos to go up, let's say that the supply of tacos goes down. Maybe there's some sort of crazy mold that starts growing all the tortillas and you just can't find good tortillas these days. Well, if that's the case, then it's going to be harder for producers to produce tortillas, to produce tacos, right? Because tortillas are one of the things you need to make tacos. So supply, in this case, would decrease. So now we have a decrease in supply. Again, we found a new equilibrium right here. And so now the equilibrium price has gone up. And the equilibrium quantity has gone down. Okay, slightly different than an increase in demand. Yes, they both resulted in a higher price, but now we're selling fewer. Okay, let's try another one. All right, we're back here. Suddenly, I don't know, the World Health Organization has just declared that maybe tacos give you cancer. Well, what do you think is going to happen to tacos? We're going to change our behavior. We're not going to demand as many tacos anymore, are we? So, demand would decrease. We have experienced a behavioral change where we no longer demand as many tacos. What's the result? Well, price has gone down, and the quantity sold has also gone down. There's less demand. We're going to do one more. Okay, we're back at equilibrium. You ever read that book, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where it's like raining meatballs and stuff? Well, let's pretend like it starts like raining tortillas, okay? If it's raining tortillas, hey, tortillas are super easy to get. It's easier and more lucrative to produce tacos. So what that's going to mean is suppliers are going to supply more tacos at every price level. And what happened to the quantities of tacos sold? It increased. And what happens to the price of tacos? It decreases. So now we've seen what happens if demand increases, if supply increases, if supply decreases or demand decreases. There's a resulting change in price, and there's a resulting change in the quantity that's actually sold. So let's get back to what I was talking about last time. So we talked about the things that shift supply and demand last time, and we had those two acronyms, TRIPE and NICEAG. And for this course, I don't really necessarily want you to focus on like going through and memorizing all of those individual determinants of supply and demand. I want you to be able to think of this conceptually. And what I mean by that is to understand that some behavioral change, and I keep saying behavioral changes and mentioning behavior, but that's what I want you to really focus on, is that if I change my behavior, whether that's because I just like something more or because I have some extra hot sauce and I want a taco to go with it, I've changed my behavior. And those things you can recognize pretty easily and intuitively, I think. There's one thing in particular that doesn't shift supply and demand. Okay? The thing that does not shift supply and demand is price. If I were to talk about demand here and I said the price of tacos went down to $2 each, you would not tell me that demand increased. Right? The price going to $2 for a taco means that the quantity demanded has increased. And that is the language we need to be able to use. We need to be able to realize that if the price changes, then there was movement along a curve. In this case, it was the demand curve. And that resulted in a new quantity demanded. And here's the other thing. How could that possibly have happened? Well, what that means must have happened is that supply increased, giving us a new equilibrium price of $2. That's what must have happened. Because price doesn't just change. Price doesn't just change. It has to be a result of some change in the behavior of suppliers or the behavior of demanders. Right? Price can't just change. And that's true. But we do have one situation in which price can change first, which sounds like I've just contradicted myself, and I sort of have. right? There's one situation where the price can be actually the thing that has changed, and it's not a result of supply and demand. And that is if the government makes a law that says the price has to be something. Say that the government says, even though the market would like the price of tacos to be $5, taco makers have gotten all upset, and they said, we can't survive at $5 tacos. It's just not competitive enough. I'm losing money, and I can't sell them for more. They plead to their congressman, and the congressman says, you know what, you're right. I don't want you to go out of business. How about if I make a law that says tacos have to cost $10 a piece? Okay, this is called a price control, but more specifically, this type of price control is a price floor. And this is important for you to know. This is a price floor. Notice that the price floor, and that looks really sloppy. Let me go ahead and erase that. Notice that the price floor, and I'm not sure how much better that is, but it's above equilibrium. So don't think of this like a ceiling and a floor in your house, because then you're going to get yourself confused. Think about the fact that the thing that wants to go down is the price. The price would love to go down, but it gets stopped. Okay? The price of equilibrium, where suppliers and demanders agree, is $5. But the government in this case wants to help out the suppliers. Now what we end up seeing is that now we have a smaller quantity demanded. Quantity demanded is now way, way over here. It's much less than it was at $5 for obvious reasons, right? Well, now they're more expensive. People don't want as many. But suppliers, seeing that they can now sell tacos for $10 each, are more motivated to make tacos, and so you see a quantity supplied that's much higher than it was at equilibrium. So now quantity supplied and quantity demanded have diverged from the equilibrium quantity. So we're using some pretty precise language right now, right? We're using quantity demanded, we're using quantity supplied, and we're using equilibrium quantity. Okay? So what you end up with is a gap. There is a change or a difference in behavior between suppliers and demanders. That's inefficient, and we have a word for this. That gap is called a surplus, meaning that more suppliers are bringing tacos to the market than demanders are willing to buy. So how many tacos are actually going to get purchased? Well, I don't care how many you bring to market. You're only going to sell as many as you can find customers for. So you're only going to sell the quantity demanded, and you're going to end up with extra or a surplus of unsold tacos. Okay, that's the results of a price floor. Price floors are meant to help producers. They are meant to help producers. But what we're seeing now is that we haven't necessarily helped producers, because now they're selling fewer. So sure, the price is higher, but unless the government also makes a law saying that I have to buy a $10 taco, I'm not going to buy one for that price. So producers end up ultimately getting hurt here. So let's look at an opposite case. Let's look at the situation where the government says the price is too high and that the price has to be lower. And thank goodness, because I think $5 tacos is ridiculous. So the government comes in and says, listen, tacos can only be $2. Okay? And what this is called is a price ceiling. That's called a price ceiling, okay? This time, price would love to go up, but it gets stuck at $2. The price, according to the behavior of suppliers and demanders, wants to be at $5. There's enough people willing to pay $5 and enough suppliers willing to bring tacos to the market at $5 that there will be equal quantities purchased and sold. But now, look what happened. I'm going to get rid of that arrow. Where's quantity demanded? How many tacos are being demanded? Well, that's way over here. Listen, at $2 each, I'm willing to buy a bunch of tacos. Everyone's eating tacos now, or at least everybody wants to, because hey, for $2 each, those are cheap. I'm going to get a bunch. But suppliers looking around saying, listen, I can only sell these for $2. A lot of them are just going to stop selling tacos altogether. The ones who do keep selling tacos probably aren't going to be that excited about it. It's just not worth it for them to bring a lot to the market. And so the quantity supplied has now decreased. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of our price floor so that you can see the result of the price ceiling. So the price ceiling, again, caused the equilibrium quantity to no longer be the place that we're producing and buying. Now you have quantity supplied and quantity demanded diverging. And this isn't the opposite way of a price floor. So with the price ceiling, which was meant to help the customers, right, or consumers, now all of a sudden a bunch of people want them and not very many of them are available. So how many do you think are being sold? Well, I don't care how many people want a thing. If there's only a certain amount, you're only going to sell how many exist, right? So now we're only selling the quantity supplied. And we have all these leftover people who would like a taco but don't get one, and we call that a shortage. That is a shortage. So this was meant to help consumers. I ran out of room there. It was meant to help consumers because now the price is cheaper, but what we might find is that consumers aren't actually helped, are they? Because even though they're cheaper, there aren't that many to go around. So these are called price controls, and you need to understand them. And you need to understand that a price floor is going to lead to a surplus. And you need to understand that a price ceiling is going to lead to a shortage. You need to understand that the reason there would be a price control is if the government decides to do it. The government is the only institution that is powerful enough, that has the level of authority that it would take to override the market. And by the market, I mean the force of supply and demand. So unless the government steps in and says, hey, the price will be this much, then prices come from the forces of supply and demand. And changes in price, in that case, would be due to changes in people's behavior or changes in the behavior of producers. However, if the government changes the price, then what you have is a price ceiling or floor, and it will lead to an inefficiency, either a surplus or a shortage. So that's all that's new for today. What I need you to do is to go ahead and work through the price change worksheet that I've included on the website and was handed out in class. Go through that. It's going to put you through your paces of seeing increases and decreases in supply, increases and decreases in demand, as well as what is the result of price ceilings and price floors. Once that's completed, it's actually going to go into your notes and be a good reference for what happens with supply and demand. So thanks for stopping by. A little shorter today. Good luck and happy studying.